Welcome to this Saturday travel and history tip, and we find ourselves in the state of Alabama. Alabama has 5 national park sites. One is Horseshoe Bend National Military Park, which we will be discussing in this Saturday travel and history tip. There's Little River Canyon National Preserve, which we have not been to, Russell Cave National Monument, which we visited many years ago, and the Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site, and the Tuskegee Institute National Historic Site, which we visited during the same trip to Alabama. But we will start our national park visits in Alabama here at Horseshoe Bend National Military Park. The Visitor Center has recently been updated and remodeled, but unfortunately due to COVID, it was closed when we were there. But when I was speaking with a ranger a couple of days ago, she said they would be opening on May 4th. However, the day we visited, the auto road was still open and we were able to tour the military park. One of the things that I wanted to focus on is that at many of the national parks, they have audio tours, and I wanted to show you how that worked. As shown by this sign, you can dial the phone number, and for this particular park, 256-212-0899. And then you are led by prompts of what to do. But as you reach each stop, you'll press the number. There will be a narration of what happened at the site. At this particular park, the numbers do not correspond with the park map. The audio tour will tell you what to do, and it works out really well. I will be playing some of the narration from the recordings for this park in this Saturday travel and history tip. This stop 1 here is the overlook. Like at most national parks, they have the plaques that have all the information that you can read, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading all the signage there, but you definitely want to do that. And up at the overlook, we could see 2 things, and we'll let the narrator tell you about these white wooden stakes.
The Upper Creeks, known as Red Sticks because of their war clubs painted red, the color of war, and the Lower Creeks, or Creek Nationalists. Friction developed over differences in attitude and over how to deal with increasing white settlement on Indian lands, also other related problems. The Upper Creeks favored war, while the Lower Creeks urged moderation. Here to your left, you will see an open clearing, marked with dozens of white wooden posts. These posts represent the markers on the log breastwork that was erected by the Red Sticks across the peninsula.
Along with the National Park Service markers, there are other markers at this park. One says Jackson Trace. The stone marks the terminus of the route traced through the wilderness by Jackson's army during the Horseshoe Bend campaign. And there were several other stones. This one, Major Lemuel Montgomery. Leading the charge on the Indian defenses, Major Montgomery fell while storming the log barricade. Horseshoe Bend was his first battle, but the 28-year-old Tennessean, already a distinguished lawyer, was among the most promising of Jackson's officers. We hiked up this small hill, and it's called Gun Hill, and it says here at 10:30 on the morning of March 27th, 1814, General Jackson quickly emplaced his single battery, 1 3-pounder and 1 6-pounder. He immediately opened a lively but ineffective fire on the center of the sturdy log barricade. After his Indian allies entered the peninsula stronghold from the rear, he offered a frontal assault on the stubborn wall. And as we drove through the park, it was beginning to look like spring. We drove along the auto road, around the Horseshoe, and along the Tallapoosa River. Major General Andrew Jackson sent General John Coffee and 1,300 men to surround Horseshoe Bend here on the banks of the Tallapoosa River. Jackson hoped Coffee's 700 Tennessee mounted riflemen and 600 Cherokee and Lower Creek warriors could close off all avenues of escape for the Red Sticks. I cannot do justice to this battle or the information on why the battle was held and all the circumstances surrounding it. And if you are interested in this type of history, I certainly recommend that you delve in deep. I have never had such emotions as while the long roll was beating. It was not fear, it was not anxiety or concern of the fate of those who were soon to fall, but it was a kind of enthusiasm that thrilled through every nerve and animated me with the belief that the day was ours without adverting to what it must cost us. Major John Reed, Tennessee Militia. The Tennessee militia preparing for battle wore homespun clothing dyed blue or brown for uniformity. Most carried muskets and bayonets. Having maintained for a few minutes a very obstinate contest, muzzle to muzzle through the portholes, in which many of the enemy's balls were welded to the bayonets of our muskets, Our troops succeeded in gaining possession of the opposite side of the works. The event could no longer be doubtful. Major General Andrew Jackson, Tennessee Militia. On a dreadful March afternoon in 1814, the barricade exploded with action. Nearly 1,000 Red Stick warriors bravely fought General Jackson's army here. About a third of the warriors carried muskets. The others used bows and arrows, knives, tomahawks, and war clubs.
Occasionally, the battle is referred to as the Battle of Tohoka. Tennessee militiamen reported that the Tallapoosa might truly be called a river of blood, for the water was so stained that it could not be used.
Prior to Horseshoe Bend, Jackson ordered his Cherokee and Lower Creek allies to wear white deer tails in their hair or headdresses to distinguish them from the Red Sticks. Although the Upper Creek and the Lower Creek were both part of the Creek Confederation of Towns, the Lower Creek lived closer to and had developed stronger relationships with Americans in Georgia. Many of the Lower Creek and Cherokee supported the United States in fighting against the Red Sticks. They joined Jackson's army, hoping to secure rights to tribal lands and to gain financial support.
A young man, 21 years in age, received a deep arrow wound in his left thigh. Later, he was wounded twice more in the shoulder by musket balls. This young man was named Sam Houston. Houston not only lived, but he also survived to become the first person ever elected governor of two states, Tennessee and Texas. From the parking lot of Stop 5, you can see the paved trail leading into the pine forest. The trail leads you to an interpretive shelter which overlooks the site of the Tohoka village.
After we left the park, we drove out to the main highway where we drove down to where you can reach the Tallapoosa River, and we found the remains of the Miller-covered bridge.
Completed in 1955 are the native stone pillars which once supported the old Miller Ferry Bridge, a covered bridge built in 1907 to 1908 of heat pine and held together with white oak pegs. The covered bridge was 833 feet long. Due to old age, disuse, and forces of nature, it collapsed into the river in June of 1963.
Here on the Horseshoe Battleground, General Andrew Jackson and his brave men broke the power of the Creek Indians under Chief Manawa, March 29, 1814, erected by the Congress of the United States. Walking where history happened. American history. Learn it, love it, appreciate it. Thank you.